Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. And we have a fabulous topic for everyone today. The thing that everyone's talking about, channel ecosystems. What does it mean and how do you build one? And I unfortunately have to start with an apology. Mark Mundy was supposed to be joining us today. Mark has been on holiday in Mexico and contracted a rather nasty bug, which means that he will not be able to join the webinar today. And I'm sure we all wish him all the very best for a very, very speedy recovery. But we do have two great people who are going to be sharing their thoughts with you during the course of the webinar. Before we do that, just want to cover a few housekeeping issues. So, Maddie, if you could move to the next slide. Just a reminder, Channel Focus Virtual is happening on the 19th and 20th of April this year. We have 50 fabulous speakers, including many of the leading channel lights in the industry. So make sure you register for the event. It's going to be a fabulous couple of days. And we also, on the 27th, have the Women's Leadership Council. This is for women only. Live and Lead with Intention. That's going to be taking place on the 27th of April. And attendance at that event is absolutely free. But as I say, it is very much a women-only event. And we want your feedback. So anyone who completes the survey, which will pop up at the end of the webinar, will be put into a draw, and 3 winners will get a voucher, which gives them $100 off any Channel Focus event. So please, please, we want your feedback, and here's an extra little incentive to ensure you do that. And we've been terrific with getting people involved in these webinars. We want your input, we want your questions, we want your comments. So please go into the chat, ask comments, comment on what's being said, ask us the questions. We really, really want to hear from you during the course of the webinar. And I have 2 terrific gentlemen who are going to be helping me this afternoon, this morning, this evening, wherever you happen to be. And the first of them is Harbinder Khera, and Harbinder is the CEO and founder of Mindmatrix. He's got over 20 years of experience in sales, marketing, and channel enablement software and solutions. He's provided IT consulting services to Southwest Airlines, Nationwide Insurance, IBM, Siemens, Citibank, and Sprint, to name just a few. He was one of the 3 CEOs to win the CRM Influential Leader Awards last year, announced by the reputed Destination CRM magazine for his contribution towards innovative sales and marketing technology. He has an MS in Information Networking from Carnegie Mellon and an MS in Computer Engineering from Florida Atlantic. He's a member of the Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society and a member of the Dean's Leadership Council at CMU. So Harbinder, welcome to the webinar, and tell us a little bit about Mindmatrix.
Thank you, Rod, and good afternoon, good morning, everybody. So, you know, I was just looking at my picture on the webinar, and I started realizing, you know, that was my picture almost 20, 25 years ago. So no gray hair. You know, now you see me with a lot of gray hair. That's me, 25 years in sales ecosystem enablement business. So Mindmatrix, this is the company I started 25 years ago. In the ecosystem, partner ecosystem space, and we never used to call it ecosystem. That's the new term. And so that's the company I started, and fast forward 25 years. So we just introduced Bridge 5.0 platform. That's the newer version of partner relationship management and partner marketing, and is designed to support the newer, the needs of the modern ecosystem. That's something we're going to talk about today. So pretty excited to be here today. So hopefully I can add value and answer some of your questions about the ecosystem, how ecosystems have evolved, how and what to do with the ecosystem. We all talk about ecosystem, but how do you make it work? And so that's something I should be able to discuss today.
Fabulous. Thank you, Harbinder. And our second gentleman joining us is James Hodgkinson. And James is the SVP of Ecosystems and Partnerships at 360 Insights. So James has the perfect title for this topic. He launched his first business at age 20 and is now a recognized industry leader with more than 2 decades of partner engagement and channel automation experience. He was most recently co-founder and CEO of Web Infinity, which was acquired by 360 in 2022. He's an innovative provider of ecosystems portal technology, and he now leads 360 Insights ecosystem strategy. And he's focused on helping the company become a category leader in sector. So James, give us briefly an insight into 360 Insights.
Yeah, hey, great to be here and to connect with everyone today. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm now part of 360 Insights, been here just coming up to a year since Web Infinity was acquired. The reason for that acquisition and for the strategy that we're putting together now here at 360 is it's really exciting. The company has a long heritage in the incentives automation market, the leading provider really of different incentives and funds management technologies. The acquisition of Web Infinity brings together unified UX across all of our existing products and platforms, but also enables 360 to become really a challenger in the ecosystem experience management category, which is really exciting part of my role here, both in terms of supporting that go-to-market, but also leading our own strategy for partnering an ecosystem as we look to scale the company in a different way. So it's a really exciting time here. We're already the largest specialist company in PRM. We have about 600 people worldwide working across all regions in the globe. And I think we have, something really, really special here we're putting together, and really happy to share any perspectives today on our strategy, our technology, thoughts in general, hopefully demystifying some of the hype around ecosystems. So yeah, really excited to get into it.
Fabulous. Well, looking forward to the discussion. And James, you're front and center on camera at the moment. I've probably asked 40 people over the last couple of months for their definition of an ecosystem and had about 46 different answers. How would you define an ecosystem?
Well, I think the reason there's so many different answers is it can mean different things to different people, and you have to contextualize it through the lens of what you're trying to achieve, I guess, in your own mission or your own business. So to me, the definition of ecosystem as it relates to my role here and to the clients that we're supporting, I think it speaks to a change really in strategy first and foremost. So, what we're starting to see now is that as the market conditions change, we're all expected to do less with more. Automation's coming into play. The way to scale a business now is not necessarily through the traditional methods of direct sales and marketing with channel, sort of stuck on the side somewhere. It's to actually try and transform the way companies of all sizes grow through leveraging and supporting their own ecosystems more effectively and joining up with other ecosystems that can expedite their projects. So, for example, if you look at it through the lens of 360, we're providing the technology that helps others do it, but we too are looking to pursue that strategy. How can we work with service partners, not just to acquire new business, but to support our clients to optimize their use of our technology, to get better results from that technology? How can we also work with other technology companies to build joint solutions, take them to market together, create the integrations between our technologies that are going to make life easier for our clients? And how do we embed this into every part of our existing business? Not to treat channel as something that works separately from our direct sales and direct marketing organizations, but build that culture of ecosystem selling, co-selling, marketing, client success into our business. So to me, the biggest shift we're seeing here is that strategic change or opportunity. Channel is still very much a part of that, but it's not something that you do separately. It's all part of one joined up approach. So I'm sure we'll unpack this more, but from the top, that's how I would see it. It's more of a strategic change that's going on, and something that I think the leaders who embrace will have a big advantage as we move into this next stage of business building.
Harbinder, how would you define the ecosystem?
So pretty similar to what James talked about, but actually when you think about sales ecosystem, it refers to people, processes, and systems coming together to generate revenue. And in a traditional sales ecosystem, all these three elements, the idea is to support new solutions that satisfy customer requirements. So it really is focused around customers, where people, processes, and systems coming together. So what it helps, how it helps companies is to solve customer problems without having to build everything in-house. That's the key. Having all the entities coming together. When you think about entities, so you have multiple sales entities that could be partners, alliances, influencers, referral partners, application partners, infrastructure providers, content partners, and then you have internal stakeholders, like you have internal CAMs, sales teams, marketing teams. They're all coming together to help solve customer problems. So that's how we define sales ecosystem. Internal and external, all coming together in the same box.
James, many would argue this is something that everyone's been trying to do for years. Why now? Why is it suddenly the buzzword? Why is it suddenly at the forefront of what a lot of people are doing?
Yeah, so I think again, it comes back to this strategic shift I was mentioning. So yes, there has always been ecosystems around companies. We used to, refer to it predominantly as the channel, but it used to be a relatively small number of pretty large companies who really went to market through channels, through distribution and resale partners, and it was a lot about the business of transactions and doing sales and moving inventory. So it wasn't every business that was built that way. It used to be, unless you were of a certain size, you wouldn't have a partner or channel business. It was something you did when you got larger. But now, since the explosion of software as a service and all the B2B platforms, there's thousands of different providers of technology in every category, it's becoming a movement across all businesses now, because we're starting to realize it's way more efficient to scale our companies using external resources, partners, teams, than it is to do it all in-house. And I think it's also becoming increasingly focused now on the valuation of companies and the way the market is starting to recognize the value of businesses. It used to be for software companies, you just grew at all costs. It didn't matter what you were spending on your OpEx and your infrastructure. It was just grow, grow, grow. As we've seen in what's happened in the stock market, and particularly the NASDAQ in the last year or so, it's no longer good enough just to grow at all costs. You have to find more efficient models for growth. So if you can outsource outcome-based revenue creation to your partners, or you can fulfill customer requirements through service partners, that's the model that people are now looking to aspire to. And it's not just pre-sales, it's every step of the customer life cycle. To Harbinder's point, we've got to build business strategies that put the customer in the center of all of that. And what I'm seeing is it's companies of every size that need to embrace this, including the smaller B2B and solution providers, not just these large enterprises that used to have the capacity to invest in channels. So that's really a key change, I think, in terms of why it's become such a buzzword and a topic right now, versus what we were doing here a few years ago.
Okay. And Harbinder, is the fact that we now have the technology, we now have the ability to handle large chunks of data, we have AI, is that having a significant impact in our ability to do new things that really makes the channel ecosystem become a reality rather than something we've been trying to cobble together for many, many years?
Absolutely. It brings back memories when I started Mindmatrix 25 years ago. And so we started with solveit.com, a solution marketplace. And so that was the idea, to build online solution marketplace where the vendors can bring their products and bring the alliance partners products together to create online solutions. That was the solutions configurator. That was the genesis of Mindmatrix. So with the dot-com bust, I have to shut that down. But really what has helped now, if I look at what is happening, you talked about AI and integrations with multiple platforms, the data interoperability aspects have really solved this problem, made it easier. And people have started to realize that one entity cannot offer everything to everyone. One company cannot offer everything to everyone. You need an ecosystem, or being a part of one helps that you bring all the other parties to help customer problems. So obviously, a couple of things have happened. So with the new, with the internet and easy access to the information and all the systems, like you have CRMs and ERP platforms easily talk to each other, PRMs and CRMs, and so it's so much easier to exchange of data has become so much easier. And access to data has become so much easier. And that has really helped catapult the evolution of newer sales ecosystem models, where now you can connect disparate entities, different internal, external organizations with proper firewalls in place, regulatory processes in place, from a compliance and GDPR, for a data sharing in place. So it has definitely made it a lot easier now what it used to be 25 years ago. So that's where we see today.
And James, I've got a great question coming in from a member of the audience, and it's particularly pertinent today. Every day we read of another tech company laying off people. How do you handle the management blowback, not moving towards investing in the channel ecosystem? Let me turn that around. How do you sell the concept of the ecosystem, which is almost certainly going to involve some investment to the C-suite, who are currently looking at every conceivable expense?
Yeah, and this is where there's almost a very counterintuitive thing going on now, which is impacting a great many very good people in terms of, those in partnership teams who've lost their job in the last few months. Because what's kind of happening is that we're still seeing the legacy viewpoint on channels and partnering enacted through the decisions that are being made in layoffs. So what's the first thing we can cut are the people who do the partnering stuff, because that's not mission critical like the direct sales teams, when actually the reverse should be happening now, where the C-suite strategy needs to be moving more to an ecosystem first mindset, where the embedding of ecosystem strategy is in the direct sales team, the direct marketer team, the customer success team, the product development team, at an organizational level, not to see partnering and channel as a silo that's expendable in tough times. So one of the things that I've been talking a lot to people about, and something that was very important to me in the early stages of my new role here at 360, was you have to really start to build a strategic business case for the future that is more at the C-suite level, with investment from the CRO, the CMO, the CPO, because if you don't do it that way, I think you'll always be vulnerable to those headwinds of, the perceived value of partner teams, because it's very easy in the moment for those kinds of decisions to be made without the strategic intelligence. So it starts a lot from the C-suite, the CEOs, the boards of companies, who need to really understand and embrace an ecosystem first strategy and recognize that's different from a channel strategy. A channel is a part of it, as I said, but it's not the only part of it. And there's a new opportunity out there, in the same way the last decade was all about marketing automation and the decade before was all about sales automation. We're now moving to the decade of ecosystem, and that the people who get that sooner are going to have a real advantage, in my opinion.
And are there any examples, this question to both of you, are there any examples out there? Because the first thing someone's going to say is, give me the business case. How is this going to give me a payback on the amount of money that you're asking me to invest?
Let me jump in here. Let me just to the other point that you asked earlier. When you think about, I agree with James. This is people should not be laying off for folks in the channel space. We're kind of the folks in channel are the integral part of this sales ecosystem and how this is being represented. But if you look at the evolution, we talked about the outbound marketing and inbound that came. I heard a term yesterday is the nearbound. So nearbound is the new term, is kind of relates to the sales ecosystem, because when you think about nearbound is talking about customer acquisition cost, cost to service your clients, retain your customers, service them, help them. And so the overall cost really comes down when you have a true flourishing sales ecosystem in place. Okay, now, and that's really a customer acquisition cost, servicing your new clients and working with existing clients. So that means your internal teams, you have marketing, internal marketing teams, internal, from a revenue generation perspective, if you look at it, it is cheaper to create a flourishing ecosystem. And if you look at from an overall strategy perspective, I think what is needed is the actual, making sure the C-suite and everybody understands why it is economical and effective and is more innovative to really create an ecosystem and have the folks in the channel and how they're going to be contributing and creating the modern ecosystem going forward.
Yeah, and maybe just
you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think just to continue to reinforce that point, the business cases are already there and proven at every level as well. So you can start at the top and point to the ecosystem winners that have already established themselves in the past few years. And I would highlight companies like Salesforce and HubSpot and Google, who are making huge economies around their businesses where, for every dollar that goes on the license of Salesforce, over $6 is going somewhere outside of Salesforce to a partner, a consultant, a integrator, whatever it is. So the top line argument's already proven, and those companies have intrinsically more value than companies that have less dollars in their ecosystems. But then when you start to bring it down to lines of business, and this is what you have to do internally, is go to the sales leaders and say, when we go through ecosystem, the cost to acquire a deal is much more outcome based. So we don't have to invest as much on salespeople. The close rates are much higher because people are now overloaded with direct cold calling and emails. The old ways aren't working anymore. The number of days to close is lower because we're going through trusted relationships. And every one of the business units has its own metrics. In marketing, it's what's the conversion rates for joint events we're doing with partners versus when we used to do it on our own, or if we go in with thought leaders. And then in product development, what if we didn't have to build all this stuff ourselves? We could just integrate a platform that already does account mapping. And this best of breed that Harbinder spoke to is now the reality. I mean, there's not one company, including ours, who can come through the door and say, we've got it all. You're going to have to work out how to connect different pieces of technology. But if you're doing that and it's not at your cost, the partners building the integration, look at the way companies like Salesforce did that. That was the winning argument. So when people talk about where's the business case, they're already there. I think the key now is how to tell that story more articulately internally to actually improve the understanding of it within our organizations and try to demystify some of this hype that's out there around the abstract concepts of ecosystem, because that doesn't help any of us when you've got people running around talking about things without substance, and that's the goal now, I think, for partnership leaders.
Harbinder, getting specific on this, I'm trying to build an ecosystem. What do I actually need to have in place to make that happen? What kinds of technologies do I need to have, and how do I get them working together?
There's a lot more you have to plan and think before you start looking at the tech. Tech part is the easy part. It really comes down to your, where do you stand from ecosystem maturity continuum perspective. And that is important for everybody to understand. It's not everybody should start their own ecosystem. They could be part of another ecosystem. So if you have a little app, you could be part of Salesforce or HubSpot ecosystem. So you not necessarily have to build your own ecosystem. Okay. So it all depends. First, comes down to the product you're selling and whom you're selling to. So if you think about a product, if it's a shrink wrap product, or as a product that doesn't really require other components of other alliance partners, when you think about from a solution perspective. So you start from there. So, okay, yes, I'm selling this product. Yes, but I need plugins from other alliance partners to make it a complete solution. That's what my customer is looking for. You start dissecting and start building from there. And then you start looking at, okay, I got the product, but it's a part of a bigger solution. Okay, I need alliance partners. That, okay, how do I'm going to service this? I want to market this. Do I need content partners? Do I need data partners? Do I need, what kind of people do I need? And once you start building this, and then you start realizing, do I need a smaller ecosystem? Do I need to be a part of a bigger ecosystem? And that is really the first tactics, the first thing that everybody should look at. An ecosystem, again, my advice is you should be part of another ecosystem if it makes sense. So it really comes down to where do you stand. So, if you look at there's been traditional ecosystems. In a typical manufacturing model, you have a linear ecosystem. You have a manufacturer makes a widget and pass it on to dealer and a distributor. It's a pretty linear ecosystem. That's something that we've been experienced over the years. So now you look at a very smaller ecosystem, very smaller collaborative space where you're transacting between the partners, but not 100% collaboration going on. So you can start something very limited. And then you see the value, then you have you open it up. There are more many-to-many communication between your partners and alliances. So that helps you co-sell, co-market. So it really, from my perspective, you should first start inwards, look at what product you're selling, how you're selling, and if it is a part of a bigger solution or not. And then start adding layers on top. And that will help you define what kind of ecosystem you need to build. Either need to build or you need to be part of something bigger. So that's my recommendation.
James, do you want to come back in on that one?
Yeah, I think one of the first principles of this as well is we already have, all of us already have ecosystems. Once you've got a supplier, a partner, a customer, even a very small business creates an ecosystem as they immediately, start to grow that company. So the question a lot is how to maximize, orchestrate, and embrace the ecosystem that's already around you in the context of this evolving strategy, to grow and create traction for our businesses in using different methods. So I think the first thing that everyone should look at is, where do we stand in all of this today? I think Harbinder makes great points that if we can hitch a ride, or we should become part of other ecosystems that help us tremendously. And that could be just super simple, like we need to get listed on AWS because we have a product that can be easier sold through that marketplace, or we should get aligned with Salesforce because they can refer us leads for our company. You've got to look outward as well. But the first thing should start with, how do we do a better job at supporting the ecosystem we already have today? And we shouldn't think of it just as partners. It's our employees, our partners, our customers, our third-party suppliers, our investors. They're all part of our ecosystem. So I think when it comes to that, then it's what's your business case to drive more effective use of the existing ecosystem? How do we evolve that to, take more advantage of the companies that work around us? And, how do we then turn that into the tooling we need to do it? Because the tech execution isn't simple. I mean, it's a very unclear market, between some of the legacy solutions that are out there for things like partner relationship management, through to some of the new ecosystem technologies that are out there for things like account mapping. So that's where companies like ours can help put the tooling together. But Harbinder is exactly right that you've got to start with, what are we trying to do first? Where are we today? What's the strategy for tomorrow? Can we get our leaders on board with that? And then can we drive through transformation, which is going to take multiple years? This is not a simple process, but you've got to start from the understanding of where you sit today and how to optimize and maximize from there forward, I think.
Okay, I've got an interesting question coming through, which is very much at the start, the strategic level of all of this. Who should manage it?
Well, maybe
Who
let me
should be
jump
the
in
leader?
there. Yeah, because I mean, one of the first things that I really started to identify as we put our strategy together at 360 is, I think you need a team. You can't necessarily put this function inside of an existing team like sales, marketing. We created a dedicated team here for ecosystems. I'm the leader of that team. I have a dedicated group. But as I said, it's not about working in a silo where the ecosystems team's off doing all this stuff. It's someone who's dedicated to aligning the lines of businesses across the whole organization with the support of the CEO and the C-suite to effectively execute the overall strategy for ecosystems as a whole business strategy, not as a separate siloed strategy on its own. So I'm a big believer, and you'll see it if you look on LinkedIn now and you look at all the announcements that we see every day, you're going to see many more people with the title of ecosystems in their role. And it's not going to be channel anymore. It's going to be ecosystems, of which channel is a component. I think that's what we're headed towards.
Harbinder, anything you'd like to add to that in terms of managing?
No, I
the process?
100% agree. I was about to say the same. So I 100% agree with James. So you definitely need somebody, as James pointed out. So the idea of ecosystem is everybody working together. Okay. And you need a facilitator, not a person, or a group. You need obviously you need a team that's enabling collaboration across internal teams, external teams, bringing all the data together, looking at the data, working together. So that's really comes down to effective collaboration among all the entities. It's more about facilitation. Sorry,
yeah, and one of the hardest things that people are finding is exactly as you said earlier, Harbinder. I mean, you're looking at tying into technologies and platforms that already exist, the HubSpot, the Salesforces, etc. Bringing these things together, you've got hopefully information coming in from multiple different sources. You've got members of the ecosystem that require very, very different things from you as a company. Some of them might even not realize that they require things from you as a company. How do you begin to pull all that together and make it work?
Sure. So, I can speak like how we're kind of thinking from Mindmatrix point of view. What kind of technology or data that somebody would need to enable or facilitate ecosystem, the modern ecosystem we're looking at. So if you look at the PRMs, the traditional PRMs that everybody has it or used it, it is really, when you think about it, is one-to-many and many-to-one relationship. You have a vendor on top and you have partners at the bottom, and vendor communicates with the partners and the partners communicate with the vendors. That is one-to-many and many-to-one. So in a modern ecosystem, it should be many-to-many. So that means one partner can talk to another alliance partner, another partner can talk to another partner. And again, depending upon the constraints of the rules that you have set up in the ecosystem. So facilitation of many-to-many communication is the key. And the second aspect is obviously you need to create a collaborative space where people can ask questions and you have option to co-sell, co-build, all co-service. So have a collaborative space for people to work together. So, and there are many items that what defines the requirements for the newer modern ecosystem. And that really also comes down to, from a solution selling perspective, solution enablement perspective, having the partners, if they have a product, giving them the option to bring to the marketplace so other partners can benefit from that. And, and also providing all this data across the board, different entities in the ecosystem through a single pane of glass, because you have many entities now participating from internal teams, marketing teams, you have alliances, you have referral partners, influencers. They have all different data needs and they're all transacting and then providing this information, single pane of glass to different folks within the organization. And the newer other aspect is account-based mapping, collaboration around accounts, account-based selling and facilitating that. So there's a list of whole slew of lists, condition that defines the requirements for the new modern ecosystem, from a platform perspective.
And James, I'm not going to be able to pull all this together tomorrow. So where should I start? If I have a limited budget, I'm trying to prove to my organization that this is a route we should take. Where do I start? And how do I begin to prove that this is the right way forward to my organization?
Yeah, so I think it's a mixture of now and next, because I think, and this is a big issue for partnership teams, but you've got to prove wins along the way, I guess, because if you are talking only to future state and you have a 3-year vision to significantly change the way the business operates, it may be too far out or not interesting enough if you don't make some progress through that journey. So I think where you start goes back to the vision, the strategy, the overall support from the executive team to get that buy-in for that way of developing the business. But one thing that to me seems very, very important in any kind of ecosystem motion is to build trust and influence with all the organizations in your orbit that need to understand your journey, your mission. So we do a great job sometimes of talking about that strategy internally, selling our leadership teams and our board on where we're going to be in 3 to 5 years. You need to do that with your partners. You need to show them the journey. And I think you need to look at how can you help each other on the way there. So for example, we're putting a big focus this year on just building relationships, deeper relationships with influencers, non-transacting companies, consultants, thought leaders, to really understand what it is we do and how it could add value to what they do and how they could make money from teaming up with us in certain scenarios. So I think you have to show outcomes, because without those deals or without those wins, it gets very hard, to prove the value of the longer term picture. But it is very, very important to get buy-in for that journey, the longer journey of transformation. I look at it very similar to what we saw at the beginning of the marketing automation era. Marketing used to be this fuzzy aspect where people would always question the value. What results do we get from marketing? We should put more in sales. Once marketing automation strategies and technology started to really mature, everybody then wanted to jump on that bandwagon. How can we get the experts on marketing automation? How can we start to do more with less? I think we're seeing similar trends here now in ecosystem strategy, but it's not going to just be an overnight change. You've got to get that buy-in, you've got to get that support. And I think so much of it for me comes back to that strategic support that you need from the leaders in a business. Without that, it's going to be very, very hard to achieve something like this.
Okay. Harbinder, thoughts on that one?
No, as I said, I can speak from, I see the both sides. From a tech side, I can tell you guys, the tech exists to support the modern ecosystem. Tech existed 5 years, 10 years ago, and we're discussing it now, and the tech exists. It's not a question of technology. And what James is talking about, and 100% agreement, is the buy-in from all the stakeholders, creating a value prop that is clear and effectively communicated to everybody. And the strategy and having the process in place. And it is a new way of thinking. Again, even if the ecosystem existed in the background and everybody kind of operated, but now it's in the forefront. And so there's a different way of collaborating and interacting. So thinking about this is the shift. Again, the marketing automation, as James pointed out, and we all went through that process. And it's a similar journey, but it's not about the tech. It's all about everything but the tech. So once that is defined, and it's now the technology, I believe, exists today to facilitate that.
Harbinder, if you're doing this, you're talking to different people, you're bringing different people into the ecosystem. You need also to create certain barriers, because not everyone wants everything they're involved in shared with everyone else in the ecosystem. How do you cope with those kinds of issues within the ecosystem?
So, like any ecosystem, even in our own families, when you create, you have little rules of governance, controls in place. What data gets shared, who can see it, who cannot see it, you still need to have that some level of enforcement. So what we see from our point of view is the rise of private ecosystems, sales ecosystems, where companies are coming together and they're creating their own ecosystems with proper rules and governances in place. So for example, something simple, you have an ecosystem, you have your partners and alliances. And if a partner tomorrow has a product that wants to bring to the ecosystem, obviously they just cannot bring the product or something that will build a little app or a widget that can work with the vendor's product. So it goes through a proper policing channel, and obviously they need to submit the request, and the vendor looks at it and say, yep, it's great, in the approval process. Now they're given a next level of authorization to participate as a supplier, as another alliance partner. So you have evolved from as a partner to now to a supplier / alliance partner. So there are a lot of checks and balances that you can still put in place to create this collaborative space. Otherwise, it becomes crazy. And obviously, you want to make sure that everybody's following certain rules. So that's really where we see the rise of, obviously, there's a public marketplaces, but again, rise of private sales ecosystems where you can put all these policies and procedures in place.
James, thoughts on that one? I know it's something you've been working on.
Yeah, I think, again, part of the shift as well is it goes back to what I was saying a little bit at the start, that the more traditional channel model was large organizations who kind of made the rules for others to play on. You know, what's the margin going to be here, and what are the rules of engagement, and you must get 5 certifications in order to be gold in our program. And so that was really the way we used to think about it. We're going to build governance around, we're the center of the universe, you have to play by our rules, and you have to jump through all of these hoops in order to be part of our ecosystem, if you like. So where I'm seeing the shift now, and where I think technology can help support it, is less about what can you do for us, but what can we do together, and moving more to the motion. So, and the motions are very different depending on who you are. If it's a more traditional motion, like a VAR who just wants to sell and make a small margin, you know, that's an increasingly difficult business, but that's a motion, and it's something we can still support. We can still, you know, be out there providing you know, an easy program to manage that. But what if it's somebody who shows up with a totally different type of motion, which is actually, I feel that there's a joint solution we could build together, and we could share that, and you know, that's something that we can all benefit from, and our customers can benefit from. That needs a totally different set of steps, processes, and also a different level of data sharing. So I think you've got to try and design it based more on what are we trying to do together, and create a funnel around that, really, that says only at the point where we're in a further level of trust will we start opening up more and more to each other. Will we start to share more information? Will we start to map our customer databases? You can't have a one size fits all to ecosystem, because the engagement needs are so diverse and so different depending on who you're trying to support. So that could be as simple as someone who shows up twice a year to refer a deal because they're in a marketing agency, right through to somebody who spends 3 years building a joint solution to take to market with you. So I think you have to start thinking about more, what are we trying to do together, not what you can do for me. You know, that's the way I would think about it.
Okay. And I'm getting quite a few questions coming in that are very specific. So if we could nail some of these, that would be really good. And James, you're on screen for me at the moment. Give some examples of what is an influencer? Give some examples.
Yeah, so again, an influencer could be very different depending on, you know, your business. Let me give a few examples of influencers that make sense in the context of a software company like 360. An influencer is independent, a thought leader, somebody who's got mind share at the customer. You know, maybe it's a consultant, somebody who's advising them on an incentive strategy. It could be a design or branding agency. They only stand to gain by putting you into a conversation where it makes them look good, where they can generate maybe some business around supporting your services or your tech. They never want to sell anything. They don't want to put it on their paper. In fact, many of our influencers wouldn't take any incentive or compensation for that influence, because they want to stay neutral and they want to be able to make recommendations to their clients that are impartial. So there's all those kinds of influencers, but I would say an ex-client could be an influencer when they move somewhere else and get a new job, or a board member could be an influencer because they're investing in another company and they've seen an opportunity at another place they're on the board of. So influencers can be all kinds of different types of people. And that's when I think if you start thinking about it more than just partners and channels, you realize there's a lot more influencers out there in your universe than we would have traditionally thought about it. So then the question is, how do we support them? How do we make it super easy? And how do we recognize the differences between transactional influencers and non-transactional influencers, and all the nuances in that spectrum? You know, that's how I would think about it.
Right. And Harbinder, partner collaboration. Talk about that. What do we really mean by that? Why are partners coming together?
So partners are coming together. It just goes back to the basic premise that not everybody can solve all the problems. Nobody has all the expertise, resources to solve a given problem. So that's why partners and partners are coming together. That's why companies and companies are coming together. That is really in the evolving in a solution selling world that we are in. So you need other products and components and different elements to help solve customer problems and service them. So that's why people have to come together. Okay, that's really the basic premise. And we live in a world now, and especially nobody has got the infinite resource. Everybody got very, very finite resources. And also the technology, everybody has, you know, they're specialized in certain areas. So collaboration more and more has become important today than ever. So that's why partners and partners are coming together.
And I think that, I mean, I've had a couple of very interesting partner discussions recently. One with a company who is stopping actually selling direct to the end customer because they are a security specialist, and already 80% of their security business is actually with other partners. So partners are recognizing that they can't provide all the security technology and expertise that they need. These guys are absolute specialists in it, and effectively they are sitting there and providing that. And so I think there's an awful lot of collaboration going on that we don't actually see out there in the marketplace, and we need to look at how we can take a place within that collaboration to move things forward. We've only got a few minutes left. We've covered a lot of ground, but there are a couple of questions. Is there anywhere anyone can go where they can find a document, something that they can use to help build them a case with the C-suite within their company? James, you're sort of nodding in the background.
Yeah, there is, I think. I mean, there's a lot of great ecosystem content out there. I happily plagiarized several sections of this for the in-business case I made internally. You know, I think there's a couple of communities that I would highlight. One is called Partnership Leaders. There's another one called Partner Hacker, which actually just did a merger yesterday, which are talking a lot about ecosystem strategy. I'm a big fan of a gentleman called Alan Adler, who writes a lot on ecosystem strategy and has built some great content that can be easily repurposed and leveraged for that business case. Jay McBain at Panelists has done some great research. Greg Sarafin at EY is a great leader on ecosystem content. So there's a lot out there, actually. It's just knowing where to look. And there's, you know, some resources that, you know, we've collaborated on here at 360 with some of those communities, which I'd be happy to share some of those links. But yeah, I mean, there's an ever-growing community. At the moment, it's mainly focused around high-growth B2B and SaaS organizations. And I think some of the more traditional channel-first companies are sort of catching up to some of this. But the great news is it's the same for companies of all sizes. That's the way I see it. You might have more to start with if you have a mature channel and a partner ecosystem that's already in place today. But the strategic opportunities is there for businesses of all sizes. And there's a huge amount of content, buzz, momentum, research, data already out there. And I'm happy, you know, if it helps, happy to share all of the resources I'm aware of.
So
okay, we'll pull those together and send them out to everyone on the call within the next 48 hours. So James, if you could share what you've got, Harbinder, you could share, and we'll also share what we've got within Channel Focus, which is quite substantial.
Yeah,
of course. I thought that was goes without saying, but good to mention that one, right?
No, we actually, James pointed out, so, you know, some of the folks like Alan Adler and Jay and folks from EY, Accenture, they put a lot of white papers out there. So we actually have also put together a white paper, looked around, and then also what we're trying to do from our side. So there's a white paper we're more than happy to share, the elements of the sales ecosystem, maturity model, why you should do it, should not do it. So there's all of that stuff. We're more than happy to share that with you guys.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time now. In fact, we're over time. It's supposed to be for 45 minutes. We've already been going for over 50. So, James, ecosystems. If you had one overriding piece of advice for people on the call, what would that be?
I'm probably just going to reinforce what I've said a few times already, but demystify the hype and get the strategic buy-in and understanding from the leadership of your business what the opportunity is here, and that means the C-suite and the board of a company, not a sales leader or a marketing leader. If you do it that way around, and you can start to build a strategy in which the whole company is invested, suddenly your access to resources, budget, that changes night and day versus trying to plow a course on your own with 2 or 3 channel people or whatever it is. So it's that piece of advice I would give. And just from a way of doing business, this is a great way of doing business. This is a winning together mindset. This is how we solve the problems, not just for our clients, but in the world. I think, how you bring together people who want to work together to achieve win-win outcomes, not to compete at all costs against each other and try and put each other out of business. So it's just a better way of doing business. And if you can get your organization behind that, it's not only good for the value of your company, it's good for, the integrity and the way that you actually structure your organization inside and out.
Harbinder, your piece of advice to everyone on the call.
My piece of advice is please don't get overwhelmed with this word ecosystem. Okay, that is really, this was there before, but now, but the important thing is first, please look inwards. What are you selling? Who's your client? And what kind of people that you need to support your customer? And something that you have done before, see how you can enhance it with better collaboration. So first, you may not be ready for, ecosystem yourself. You could be part of another ecosystem. That is okay. And still really benefit from being part of another ecosystem. Okay, so that'll be my first thing, my advice, that please don't get overwhelmed. You already have something in place. You need to make it better, enhance it, as James pointed out. So from an ecosystem perspective, it is all about collaboration. You have influencer partners, referral partners, but you have to look at the entire journey about your customer, how you sell to them, how you take care of them, pre-sales, post-sales, and what other entities you need to do a better job, and how you generating your leads today, again, from an inbound, outbound, nearbound. So, and again, don't get overwhelmed. The technology is there. It's more about creating a process, buy-in, creating a strategy, a joint value prop across all the entities in your ecosystem. If you really need one, depending upon the product you sell, you may be just okay with 5, 6 different partners selling together. You don't need a sophisticated ecosystem. So again, that would be my advice. Don't get overwhelmed. Tech already exists. Just focus on the value prop, look at the process, and making sure all the internal stakeholders are on the same page.
James, Harbinder, thank you very, very much indeed for some great insights. I think this is a topic that's going to come up time and time again. So let's all be looking at it. I think we've got to look at it at the moment with the perspective, as we had 3 CFOs on a very important panel, and their overriding comment on any investment was, give it to me in stages. Give me stage 1, where you want an investment. Give me goals associated with that stage. Give me things that you're going to achieve. I will then fund stage 2. Give me the goals, meet the goals, and I will then fund stage 3. So I think the real key here, we're talking about a long-term process. Do it in stages. It'll make it much more manageable for you. It'll mean that you'll achieve those wins that are so important, improving the process, and it will mean that you will get buy-in from the C-suite. So, James, Harbinder, thank you so much. Really hope everyone gained a lot from that. And once again, please do complete the survey that'll come up at the end of the call. Gentlemen, really, really super job.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.